Hello everyone, this is Here's Trivia, and today we're going to talk about the Chinese constellation deities, or the 二十八星宿. As you might have noticed these magnificent statues at the start of Chapter 3 from the game Black Myth Wukong. Now, these in-game statues of the 二十八星宿, or the Chinese 28 constellation deities, often translated as the 28 mansions in English, are real statues from the Jade Emperor Temple within the city of Jincheng, located in the Shanxi province of China. This Taoist temple, first built during the Sui dynasty, houses these 28 statues that were sculpted by the famed Yuan dynasty sculptor Liu Yuan, who was most well known for his inclusion of small animals in his works. And this works perfectly for the 28 mansions, as in traditional Chinese mythology, each of the constellation deities has an animal form in addition to their human forms. But before we dive into the mythological roles that these deities played in both the novel Journey to the West and the game Black Myth Wukong, allow me to first explain the astronomical origins of these constellations. Like all ancient civilizations, the Chinese have been observing the night sky for thousands of years and thus have developed their own system to categorize the stars. By dividing the observable elliptical plane into 4 quadrants based on the cardinal directions of north, south, east, and west, a total of 28 constellations were created, with each quadrant containing 7. Now, the reason why 28 constellations were created instead of, say, the Western 12 constellation system stems from the fact that Chinese astronomy, and thus calendars, track the lunar cycle, which roughly completes every 28 days. So for each phase of the moon, a constellation in the night sky was recorded, and because the Chinese believed that these stars resided in the sky, the term xiu, which means to reside, was used to call these constellations, and this is also the reason why you often see the term 二十八星宿 being translated to 28 mansions instead of constellations. Now, the exact names for each of these 28 constellations can be traced all the way back to the 4th century BC, while the earliest texts that have these names recorded would be the Confucian text Li Ji, or the Book of Rites. And in these early records, the names were all just 1 character long, as shown here. Yet over time, as these constellations were adapted for the purposes of fortune-telling and mythology, 2 additional characters and additional meanings would be added to every name. Now, just by looking at the second characters here, we will notice a pattern as they seem to repeat for each of the quadrants. And there is a very good reason for this, as the 7 characters used on repeat represent the 7 observable planets. Now, planets here include the likes of Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and Saturn, which the Chinese named according to the 5 elements or the 5 phases, as Mercury is Jinxing, or the gold star, representing the Chinese element of metal. Jupiter is Muxing, or the wood star. Venus is water. Mars is fire. And lastly, Saturn is earth. Then for the final 2 quote-unquote planets, we have and Yue, or the sun and the moon. Together, these 7 represent the largest 7 stars humans can observe with the naked eye, and by the Han Dynasty, the fortune-telling techniques that use these 7 stars were combined with the techniques using the 28 constellations, and thus this naming convention was created. Now, the third and last character for these constellation names would not be added until the Song Dynasty, or more than 1,000 years after the addition of the second character, mainly because this third and final character have nothing to do with astronomy. Drawing inspiration from the Chinese zodiac and early forms of fortune-telling that associated characteristic of animals to certain human behaviors, the final evolution of these constellation names added a unique animal name as the third and final character. For example, in the game Black Myth Wukong, we fight the constellation deity named Kang Long in Chapter 3. Breaking her name down as an example, Kang is the original constellation name created when early astronomers first plotted out the stars. Jin, meaning gold, is the Chinese character for the element of metal, which means the associated planet here is Mercury, And finally, Long, or the Chinese dragon, is the animal assigned to this constellation. Using another example from the game, we have Mao Ji, who appears in a corrupted form in Chapter 4. Breaking his name down, Mao is the original constellation name for the fourth constellation in the western quadrant. Ri represents the sun, and finally Ji represents the rooster or the chicken. Now that we understand how these constellations came about and how the naming systems work, let's talk about their appearances in the journey to the west. In the framing of the novel, the 28 constellation deities serve as officials in the celestial court. Categorized as Taoist deities, they follow the orders of the celestial emperor, and thus participated as a collective against Sun Wukong when he first challenged the celestial court, long before he joined as a member of the journey westward. While serving mainly as just a backdrop at this time, the constellation deities will get their spotlight in chapters 28 to 31, when one of the constellation deities in Kui Mu Lang abandoned his celestial post after having an inappropriate love affair with one of the celestial maidens, as both would choose to secretly descend into the mortal realm to continue their love affair away from the watchful eyes of the celestial court. While the celestial maiden would reincarnate as a princess of a minor kingdom, Kui Mu Lang reverted back to his animal form of being a weasel monster, nicknamed the Yellow Robe Monster, and after kidnapping the princess from her kingdom, the two lovers would go on to live together for 13 years and having even 2 kids until Tang Seng passed by their cave during the journey to the west. Naturally, Kui Mu Lang would go on to become one of the trials for Tang Seng before being forced to return to the celestial court to serve a temporary demotion after being defeated by Wukong. An interesting Easter egg here is that in the novel, Kui Mu Lang gained most of his powers in his monster form from a Taoist alchemy pill called Ling Long Nei Dan that he personally crafted. And of course, the name of this dan is now being used in the game Black Myth Wukong as the key ingredient in crafting permanent stat upgrades for the main character. Aside from Kui Mu Lang, the most well-known story involving the 28 constellation deities would be from chapters 65 and 66 during the events of the Lesser Thunderclap Temple and Yellowbrow, as all 28 deities would come to the rescue of Wukong. It was also here that Kang Jinlong used her horn to breach the golden symbol and free Wukong before Yellowbrow showed up and captured all 28 deities into his sack. Lastly, in chapter 73 of the novel, Mao Ji's mother, the Bodhisattva Pilan Po, who takes the form of a hen as her son, Mao Ji is the rooster, was able to help Wukong defeat the 100-eyed demon, whose true form is a centipede. There are also a few more stories involving the 4 wood element constellation deities that would come to Wukong's aid against the 3 rhino monsters, but overall the 28 mansions have a rather minor role in the novel. Where they're more important is in traditional Chinese fortune-telling, where they function in a similar manner as Western horoscopes. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this video and gained a better understanding about the origins of these Chinese 28 mansions and their crossover with the Journey to the West and Black Myth Wukong. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, please remember to subscribe, hit that like button, and drop a comment below. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!